Welcome to the Good Intentions Show on the UI Media Network, sponsored by the United Attention Foundation. I'm Tim Ray, your host, and I have two incredible guests here today, Dr. Harrison Davis and Dr. Hasha Dickerson. They're both therapists, and they counsel everyone around, I say everyone, right, or most people around the Atlanta area. So welcome. Thank you for coming in and joining us today. So now, you all, of course, are hosts on your own show on the UI Media Network, which is called The Two Therapists and a Microphone, which is a great name, isn't it? I should actually
Just in case there's any confusion about what we do.
Yeah. Well, this is a microphone that you should be holding, by the way. But this is, what a great name, Two Therapists and a Microphone. But tell us a little bit about what you do on the show, and then we'll talk a little bit about you all individually, if that's okay.
Okay.
Who wants to go first? Doctor?
I want Harrison to go first.
I can start. Let me know when to stop. So the show, Two Microphones and Two Therapists and a Microphone, is a show that talks about relevant social, personal issues. And I wanted the show to connect with a more urban audience that is out there to talk about things that are important to us. Some topics, interviewing other individuals who have some things to talk about with our community.
Well, and Hasha, what about you? Did you just go along with what Dr.
Yeah, Harrison wanted me to jump on, and I was like, okay. But really, although we're both therapists, Harrison and I are also educators. Mm-hmm. So the thing about Two Therapists and the Microphone is that we want to educate the masses and just go a little bit beyond what we already do in the classroom. There's only so much that we can do in each class when you're trying to go over terms and you have all these papers you have to grade. But we met through the Association for Multicultural Counseling and Development, and that organization is a division of the American Counseling Association that focuses on helping different groups that are experiencing disparities, looking at different minority populations, right, and their needs, and we're really, for lack of a better term, social justice warriors. So one of our parts with social justice is, as I say, educating the masses, and we thought that a radio show, well, actually it started as a podcast, would be a great way to do that.
Absolutely.
Well, define social justice, because it may have a different terminology to different people, but but to be a social justice warrior, apparently, there must be a need for, from your perception, a need for educating people on this piece, on this understanding of what that is. But first start out defining it, and then we'll go into where's the need.
Well, you're correct. There are different definitions for social justice. I just like to look at the term fairness, and equality,
right.
And how different people are treated, and some policies and some rules that are out there. And so it's ingrained in me that everybody receives the same type of treatment and the same type of justice. When something's done wrong, then we need to correct that. And it needs to be blind justice that is out there. And there are some occasions where I believe it's not blind justice, and that we need some other individuals to point out when things are not fair. And that's where social justice comes into play.
Mm-hmm. I think that when a lot of people think about social justice, they think about groups of people who are just offended by things that are happening to them. But as Harrison said, what we want to look at is people being treated fairly. Even if you don't necessarily agree with what they're doing or with their lifestyle, that doesn't mean that you have to discriminate against them or retaliate against them.
We see a lot of that on college campuses.
See it everywhere.
It's everywhere. Some of the kids who just take it to social justice to extreme, or like they could say certain things but other people can't say certain things. Do you recognize that? Do you recognize that in reference to? Because to me, it would seem like it was somebody's perception of what's good as social justice. Like you may think something's right, I may think something's wrong. So who's correct? And so your perception is what you believe what social injustice is, let's say. And I'm sure there's probably a universal definition of that everyone could probably agree on. But your definition of social justice, you would say on a universal level that everyone could agree on, would be what type of examples?
I would say fairness and helping people
fairness?
Well, let's say putting people in a position where they can feel safe. So although even if you're doing something wrong, does that mean that you should be in a position where you're not safe. I think a good example would be on one of our shows. We talked about immigration and deportation.
Let's talk about that right at this break.
Okay.
That's a great example to use on that. I think that will be interesting to talk about. We're sitting with Dr. Harrison Davis and Dr. Hasha Dickerson, and we're talking about right now two therapists and a microphone, and their understanding of what social justice means to them. And we'll be right back. We'll see you in a second. Hi, my name is Tim Ray. I'm the founder of the United Intentions Foundation at unitedintentions.org. Everything is energy, and that's all there's to it. Match the frequency of the reality that you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. There can be no other way. And this is not philosophy, this is physics. Now, I just gave you a quote from, not me, but from Albert Einstein. He said a long, long time ago. So what does he mean by matching your frequency of the reality you want to experience? First, you have to realize that not only as humans, but everything is made up of energy. And at an atomic level, everything's vibrating at certain frequencies. Even on a collective level, we're vibrating at a certain frequency. This is very important to know. Once you understand that, you're closer to understanding what Einstein meant by matching our reality and matching the frequency. You'll have that experience. Stay with me here, because our thoughts, feelings, and emotions vibrate at specific and unique frequencies. There's a physical phenomenon going on and with our thoughts and feelings, and we have to realize that whatever state of being that we create through our thoughts, feelings, and emotions, we will attract that experience. That's the law of attraction. So it behooves us to choose our thoughts carefully, at least be aware of our state of being, because that's the experience we will have. Learn more at unitedintentions.org and begin manifesting your passions one intention at a time. Welcome back to the Good Intention Show. I'm Tim Ray. I'm sitting here we'll go with Dr. Hasha and Dr. Harrison because they're very informal people and making a personal impact out there in the world. So we left talking about social injustice and your definition of that. Well, where somebody says fairness, my mom told me a long time ago, Tim, you're going to learn life is not fair, but you can be. And so when I hear things like that, and also then I also take into account a meritocracy type of environment where merit is rewarded. And the challenge is when somebody's performing better or doing more work in a certain area, where's the fairness in that where somebody's not working as hard? So how do you define that in being fair in a meritocracy environment?
Well, merit should always be rewarded, but we also need to look at the background context of the situation and what type of privileges is there for a certain group of individuals and what type of obstacles are there for another group.
Right.
And that creates this environment of unfairness that is there. And so we can't always look at it, well, they're doing a better job and that person or that group is not. There's some background information that's causing that situation and dynamics of that situation, and we like to review that.
So you would say meritocracy would not be the primary reason why somebody should advance. It should be other reasons because of what?
We're not saying that people shouldn't be advanced just because of their merit. But when you're looking at one person's merit and the things that they've accomplished, you need to also look at what other people have not been able to accomplish because of lack of privileges.
Okay.
So perhaps someone has internships under their belt. They have a quality education that they were afforded, right? Recommendation letters, and the person that they're going up against who doesn't have these internships, doesn't have these recommendations, doesn't have the financial background, they weren't afforded those opportunities. They could not work a free internship because they had to work a job at Walmart or Target in order to help their family pay the bills, or maybe candidate A had connections to certain companies because his father already worked in these companies, and
Absolutely.
candidate B, their mother was perhaps the janitor at their school, so they didn't have the same connections that candidate A had. So these are just some of the things we're saying people should keep in mind when they're weighing merit.
So not having a ticket to the, not being able to get the ticket to the show to show what you have. And so you want to be able to create an environment where everybody has an opportunity to get this ticket. And then once you get to the show, strut your stuff, see what you have, get the opportunity to do what you need to do.
And what Aisha is talking about is taking a look at the system. And the question is, how fair is that system? And is everyone on the same level ground? Is there a lot of fairness there? We want everybody to be rewarded for their hard work that is out there. But if one football team comes out there with the equipment and a string of coaches, they're going to do much better than another team that doesn't have a field to play on. They don't have coaches, and they do not have the equipment to play at that level. So that means that the playing field is not the same. So when we talk about social justice, we like to look at the whole system that is out there.
Well, that's a nice little challenge, isn't it? Looking at
Yes,
the
it
whole
is.
system. So how do you eat that elephant?
Well, one thing that I like to do in workshops and in classes is something called a privilege walk. It kind of went viral on YouTube because somebody taped it, and I was like, I should have taped mine, then I would have gone viral, right? But some of the questions that we ask in the privilege walk, where people take a step forward for each privilege that they have, is if you went to a private school, take a step forward.
Yeah.
If you've received any inheritance, take a step forward. If you went to college, take a step forward, but if you took out student loans, take a step back. Things of that nature, because it's a big difference between having to collect $100,000 in student loans to get the same degree that someone else got because their parents could already afford for them to go to college. So you kind of already have these things working against you. And doing the privilege walk, it shows that also that everything is not about race, because when we talk about social justice, especially on the show, we try to help everyone understand it's not just about race, but when you look at these different privileges still in the privilege walk, it ends up kind of being divided, right? Divided by race because of some of the privileges that certain races receive versus others.
Would you have that in other countries? Differences, if because here in America you get minority percentages, you got majority percentages, but any other country you go to, if you went to Russia or you went to Africa or you went to anywhere around China, would you feel there would be social injustice? People would treat you differently?
I don't know if they would treat us differently. I can't answer that question, but within those homogeneous environments, they find ways to segregate each other.
They do.
It may be by socioeconomic status and who has money, who has power, but as humans, we find a way to separate each other. So social injustice, I believe, is in existence everywhere.
It is, and a lot of the Middle Eastern countries, they're separated by religion, and
Yes.
people who practice certain religions receive more privileges than those who practice others.
It seems almost, I don't know how, it seems almost impossible, because now you're just not talking about race, you're talking about gender differences,
And socioeconomic.
socioeconomic differences.
Right.
So it seems like, is there another solution? Because just to pick one piece out, and I understand the privilege walk and the things that you do, it seems like it's almost like it's talk about eating the elephant. Almost, is this the right direction to go into, or is there another way of evolving this where people will waken up to their own level of consciousness to this type of environment? Like forcing people to do things when they're not ready to accept it as a therapist sometimes can be very detrimental to someone, as you all may know. So is there maybe another easier way or a more effective way to go about social injustice rather than perhaps just the activism aspect of it?
I just like to raise awareness and help people to identify or figure out where social injustice lives. And when you see it, you need to be able to recognize it, and then you have the opportunity to actually do or say something. But I think it's worse if you can't even recognize it, or you're in denial that it even exists.
So both of your opportunities, what you want opportunities for other people to have, is first to wake up to the message of social injustice. And when we get back from break, let's talk about some of the steps that you all believe that not only you'll be able to do on your show, Two Therapists and a Microphone, but what you do on your individual lives to try to wake people up to this understanding of your belief of what social injustice is. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Tim Ray, founder of the United Intentions Foundation. I want you to imagine a world where bullying doesn't exist. Or how about your child wakes up in the morning and is grateful for everything they have, or they actually believe in himself or herself. On top of that, imagine this. Imagine your child understands that their thoughts and feelings create what they experience. All this is possible with our Imagine If program. And it's all about social emotional learning, showing children how their thoughts and feelings create what they experience. To learn more, go to imagineifprogram.org.
What if you could have whatever you desired with a simple thought? Wishful thinking? Science has proven that thoughts can change our reality. Join the movement and be part of an interactive virtual community that helps you take control of your life through the power of intentions. Learn to create the life you desire, one intention at a time. Sign up today for your free account and start creating.
Hi, I'm Tim Ray, founder of the United Intentions Foundation. And how would you like to have a formula for manifesting whatever you want in your life? You think it's that easy? Well, maybe not that easy, but you could start out with this. Understanding that it's all about creating a state of being. Your state of being, how you act throughout your day, how you feel about yourself throughout the day, and being conscious of that in any given moment. And understanding these three principles: repetition, expectancy, and meaning. And adding those three principles into your life could change and create the state of being that you would need to actually manifest what you want. Remember, repetition, expectancy, expecting what you really want, repeating what you want, and also adding meaning to what you want creates that state of being, a fertile land and fertile soil for you to attract what you truly want to experience. To learn more, go to unitedintentions.org.
Welcome back to the Good Intentions Show. I'm Tim Ray, your host. I'm sitting here with Dr. Hasha and Dr. Harrison. They're hosts on this show on the UI Radio Network, and I should say UI Media Network. But what if we all met on a deeper level? We want to met on a spiritual level of understanding of who we are, than rather just you're black, I'm white, he's Indian, or he's red, he's blue, whatever it may be, or she's a female. What if we went further than that and we connected on a soul level with each other? Would that be more likely a solution to get past this social injustice, where people were more likely to bond with each other than to worry about if this policy is in place, if this is fair or not fair? So whoever's saying it's not fair is always coming from somebody of superior perspective, because they're always thinking that they know best, they're right. So whatever you consider is fair or I consider fair, I believe I'm in a superior position. You should learn what I believe is fair. And so from my perspective, it seems like it's such a daunting challenge to try to change, like we all said, something this enormous, right? Unless it was more so, from my perspective, from a more spiritual level. What's your take on that?
I think it would be great if we could focus on what we have in common. And how we can connect with each other and how we're more alike. And so because of that, there's a lot of injustices. It's not always focused on who has the privilege or the power. Sometimes it's how people are treated. When there are rules that are in place and some policies, social injustice also includes when someone breaks those rules. I like to see them receive the same punishment as someone else who broke the rules. And we have learned that that's not always the case. So social justice can go much further, than who we are, how we're connecting, how we're similar or different. It's how we treat each other. And so that's what I like to focus on.
Oh, great. So, like, for example, one thing that I have to say is that just out of control these days is the prison system. Ever since they privatized the prison system,
Oh, yes.
it's become a business, locking people up, and you'll find a lot of the minority people who are getting locked up quicker than anybody else because they don't have, like you say, the means or even the education to how to defend themselves or how to avoid, how to get a decent lawyer who could avoid perhaps going into the system.
And how they were treated by the police officers when they were caught. There are other criminals that are out there. A criminal's a criminal,
Right.
And the question I have is, how did you treat the other criminals? And did they receive the same type of attention as you put towards these minority individuals who also broke the law, or perhaps you did something to frame them to make it seem as though they broke the law? So that's where I like to focus on the fairness of the whole system that is out there. There are various reasons why the makeup of the prison system is the way it is.
And a lot of times awareness is key.
Yeah.
Some people may not be aware of their own biases until someone else brings it to their attention. So that's why one of the big things we do is just bring people into awareness.
Because you know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And why you're saying it's so important for what you do on your show and what you do in your personal lives to get this message out. And it's because just to have information is, if we take for granted, don't we? That we think we know something and we normally don't. And what do they say? The ignorance is not an excuse for not knowing the law.
It's
right?
not.
Which I don't know. To me, I think it could be in some circumstances.
They don't let you use it as an excuse, but there are certainly people who, I just learned some rules about passing school buses not too long ago, but
bet you did.
it was.
And using your cell phone in the car.
But that was no excuse.
Right. But so what is next for you all? I mean, if you had to pick a certain measure, because I know you're doing the show here, but if you had to pick a certain measure of a focus of what you really want to get out there, a message you want to get out there, whether through your show on a personal level, what would it be? And why don't you go first?
Well,
Dr.
what I can
Harrison?
first say is that although we are warriors for social justice, the show, we focus on other topics too. We like to do fun topics.
We do.
We don't always talk about things that are going wrong. But we do want to educate the public that's out there. I just like bringing awareness to people and having them to figure out what's going on within them and what's going on in the environment around them. It doesn't have to always focus on mistreatment.
Sure. What about dating? Didn't you guys do a show?
We did one about online dating, and in another few weeks we're going to focus on some other parts of dating, because we focus on mental health and wellness as a whole also, and dating and relationships is a part of that.
Absolutely.
Any advice you'd like to give on dating at this time and day?
Harrison's married, so I'm sure he could give better advice than I can.
I can. Something I've told a few clients recently, let's develop a screening mechanism. It's okay to date somebody and you meet someone and go out on a few dates. That doesn't mean that you're attached to them. Doesn't mean that you're going to get into a long-term relationship with them. But what's your criteria? What's that screening process beyond he's cute, or she looks great? That's something that I like to tell some of my clients sometimes.
Aisha, any advice on your end?
Well, I would say that's good advice from the male perspective. From the female perspective, I would say, look beyond how much money the man makes and who can take care of you. Worry about taking care of yourself first, and be in a relationship for the happiness and not for the care.
Be the partner that you want.
Right.
That's how you can attract the person who is meant to be with you.
Sounds like Gandhi, be the change you want to see in life, right?
Be the change in your relationship that you want to see.
Great. Wonderful. So when does your show air, and so people can know to listen to you all?
We air on Tuesdays evenings at 5 o'clock twice a month on local radio stations and over the internet. Okay. Is that correct?
Yeah. I see who wears the pants in this partnership over here. So one other thing I want to ask you all before we close out today, and thank you so much for coming in on your busy day and sharing your wisdom and your information and so much. You're doing so much light work out there. People don't realize what it is until you get out there, and people don't realize how you touch them until you see it in action. And it's amazing what you're doing every day. And I want to thank you all for that.
Thank you.
But what with your show and with what you all doing on as a group, individually, what do you want from you, Dr. Hasha, to what's your purpose here, do you believe, at this point in your life?
My purpose is to, as I said, educate the masses, and that's whether I place little nuggets in my children and their friends so that they can go out and educate their friends, because they listen to their friends more than they listen to adults. Whether people are listening to us on the radio or social media and they say, I need more information about that. We've had people reach out and want us to come to their companies, and we're willing to do that. Doing presentations at conferences and other places. I just want to educate people as much as possible. If I can help one or two people, then I feel like I've made a difference in the world.
Well,
sounds wonderful.
You're doing it. Now, Dr. Harrison, you can't say the same thing, right?
You stole all my words.
Oh, man.
But what I can say, I like to listen to radio shows and news, cable shows, and the commentators that are out there. And what I realize many times, they're talking to a specific audience. And sometimes I'm not part of that audience. In an urban community, they're not part of that audience either. I want to connect with that audience. I want to be much more inclusive when we talk about some of our topics compared to other networks that are out there. So we're going to talk about the same topics that you might hear on news radio shows or the radio show. It's just that we're going to make sure that we create a voice for the people who are out there who we don't usually hear from. And that's an urban environment or a Black community or Hispanic community or LGBT community. That's what I want to do. I want to help create voices for all those communities that are out there.
Oh, wonderful. And it sounds like this is the different niche that you have to do, because like a lot of different shows are doing things like that, but yours is different because you're making sure that everyone has that opportunity for that.
Absolutely.
Not just a certain group.
Absolutely.
So wonderful. Thank you all for coming in. I appreciate it very much, and best of luck with all your future shows and what you're doing on an individual level as well. Again, we're talking to Dr. Hasha Dickerson and also Dr. Harrison Davis from Two Therapists and a Microphone. And if you'd like to get in touch with them, you can go to uimedia.org. Thank you for watching The Good Intentions Show, and remember, your perception creates your reality. So see how you're perceiving things. We'll see you soon. Until next time, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.